China's push toward EVs. In other words, Chinese people, they are moving away from internal combustion cars. What this means is that a spate of car factories owned by Volkswagen, Nissan, and various legacy automakers will be forced to shut down this year. Also, potentially hundreds and hundreds of dealerships will, go bankrupt. We already know that the majority of these dealers in China, more than 60% of them, are losing money. Automotive News has reported that China's electric vehicle market, nurtured by generous government subsidies, has taken off. And as a result, this zero-sum game is going to have dire consequences for legacy automakers and their factories over the next 12 months. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. BYD, Tesla, and other automakers that invested heavily in EV development early on have benefited from the market's growth that has also attracted upstarts like XPeng, Li Auto, NIO, Xiaomi, and many, many others. But as XPeng's CEO has recently commented, a bruising price war, he referred to it as a bloodbath, is hampering revenue and profits at some automakers. I mean, look at General Motors. They've lost money for 3 straight quarters, hundreds and hundreds of millions. And this is delaying profitability. Even as the broader market rebounds from the pandemic and chip shortage and sets records for wholesale shipments. I mean, last year, 31 million cars were delivered in China. Just to give you some context on that, that's nearly 30 times the size of Australia's car market. It's enormous. Top executives at XPeng, NIO, and other automakers are calling the next few years the elimination round in China's glutted auto industry, and note the market won't protect companies with any shortcomings. XPeng CEO believes only 7 companies will be left at the end of the bloodbath. Once it's finished, once the floor has been cleaned and we see who's left standing, there's only going to be 7 companies left. BYD's CEO has also confirmed the fact that it is their mission to rid China of legacy automakers. And they're succeeding at that. Brands such as Acura, Renault, Mitsubishi, and Jeep have abandoned the market or gone bankrupt in China. Several Western automakers caught off guard by the rapid pivot to electric cars. Hyundai, Stellantis, and Ford, and of course General Motors, saw China's sales collapse and have curtailed output in recent years. Nissan's sales have actually gone down by around 50% over the past 5 years. It was once the best-selling manufacturer in China. At least 4 other major global automakers are poised to follow suit in 2025 or later as they lose more ground to local competitors amid the market transition. Now, Auto News is saying that at least 4 automakers, global ones, will leave China altogether in 2025. They'll just say, you know what, we've got all these factories here. According to our book value, they're worth billions of dollars, which is just ridiculous, but they are. I've been saying this for years now. All these so-called book values are just nonsensical. So if you go to something like Seeking Alpha, they say, look at the book value. It's amazing. Wow, the numbers are just awesome. Look at this company. Invest in this company. Their assets are insane. How many times have you read this? Seriously, if you read this kind of stuff, the assets on hand are amazing. They're worth so much money. Yeah, okay. No, they're not. They're worth nothing. If they're not making cars that people want, they're worth nothing. Literally nothing. General Motors, Honda, Nissan, and the Volkswagen Group have already laid off factory workers in China, according to local media, signaling cuts in output are underway. Whereas BYD, on the other hand, is hiring staff like there's no tomorrow. BYD actually have now more engineers than any other company in the world. Any company in the world. General Motors operates 2 joint ventures with SAIC Motor Corp in China, SAIC. SAIC GM and SAIC GM Wuling. Now, fortunately for General Motors, this is a state-owned company. So there's a bit of incentive here for this company to actually make sure things work out. SAIC GM produces Cadillac, Buick, and Chevrolet cars and light trucks, while SAIC GM Wuling builds Wuling brand minibuses, compact pickups. Really, to be honest, their best-selling vehicle is that little $5,000 to $6,000 electric vehicle, which is, basically a key car. That's their best-selling car, and they don't really make money on those. They're very small, very, very tiny profit. I believe the profit just comes from subsidies. I heard it was $27 per car, but I'm sure that fluctuates. GM's main problem in China is with SAIC GM, which operates 6 different assembly plants, and obviously they're all producing well below capacity. The joint venture's sales have steadily fallen since 2018 to less than 450,000 last year, while annual production capacity has remained fixed at 1.9 million cars. So they built all these factories, right, capable of producing 1.9 million cars, but they only made 450,000 last year. And the problem with this is it's better than it sounds. It's a complex issue, and I'll talk about that in a separate video. But anyhow, that means their production is actually only 25% of capacity. 25%. In other words, it's incredibly inefficient. It's just insanely inefficient. In 2024, wholesale deliveries at SAIC GM fell by 57% to 435,000, according to SAIC's filings. 57% fall in sales from SAIC GM. And this is why it's worse than it sounds, because GM sales fell by only 14% across all of China. The reason is because SAIC has a tri-venture with GM and Wuling, and that's where they produce the microcars. So these mini EVs are selling really, really well. So it looks like General Motors sales in China actually haven't fallen by that much, only 14%. But GM's full-sized proper cars in the company that they own 50% of, not 33% of, and don't make any profits, their sales have collapsed by 57%. So actually, General Motors' numbers from China are much worse than what they sound like. GM in December warned it was anticipating $2.7 billion in charges, basically in write-offs from plant closures and portfolio optimization. In other words, General Motors have said, yeah, we are going to close some of these plants down. When? I don't know. It's unclear how General Motors and SAIC plan to restructure operations at the company, but given the steep fall in sales, the joint venture will likely have to shed nearly half of its production capacity to restore profitability. Now, if it actually only shed half, it would still only be utilizing factory capacity at 50%. And it said you need to utilize capacity at a minimum of 70% to actually be profitable. So yeah, it might have to shed much more than half to make this actually work. What about Nissan and Honda? Like General Motors, Nissan and Honda face a severe surplus of factory capacity in China after a steady contraction in deliveries. Nissan sales dropped by 12% to less than 700,000, a fall of 50% since 2019, while Honda's deliveries tumbled by 31% in a single year. I mean, they're not going to go up this year, are they? They're going to get worse this year. And that means they sold 853,000. Now, if you can imagine they drop by another 31%, they might fall down to 500,000 this year. It looks a lot worse than it actually initially appears. The 2 Japanese automakers started to cut or suspend output last year. Nissan's joint venture with Dongfeng Motor Group closed an assembly plant in East China city of Changshu, while Honda shut down one production line at each of its 2 joint ventures, one with GAC Motor and the other with Dongfeng. So what they're doing is they're shutting down production lines in the factories to just keep the factories open. It's sort of about saving face. And also, remember, to build these factories, they would have gotten huge incentives from the local government, and they don't want to shut the factory down because it's going to look bad. So they're like, well, okay, we'll just fire 50% of the staff, get rid of half the production lines, and we'll keep the factories running. But then they're inefficient, right? They're not running anywhere near the level they should be. Both automakers will retain annual production capacity at this point in time of 1.5 million. So they can make 1.5 million cars, but they're selling around half that. And I'm sure it'll be less than half, well and truly less than half of their production capacity in 2025. Nissan and Honda are hatching plans to integrate operations, including a full-on merger. That could push the 2 automakers to take quicker steps to eliminate excess production capacity in China. Numerous factories will shut down from both companies in 2025 in China, and possibly outside of China as well. What about the Volkswagen Group? Autonews.com says that excess Chinese capacity also keeps mounting at the Volkswagen Group, the largest foreign automaker in China amid falling sales. The German auto giant operates 3 joint ventures in the country. And it's actually a bit more complicated than that because they have numerous partnerships now. While its partnership with JAC Automobile Group hasn't begun full production, Volkswagen Group's two other joint ventures, one with SAIC and the other with China FAW Group, combined can churn out more than 5 million vehicles at full capacity. Now, this doesn't actually count for Audi's new joint venture partnership with SAIC or XPeng's new joint venture partnership with the Volkswagen Group. So as you can see, they basically have 5 joint venture partnerships. It's just so complicated in China. I don't know why they make things so complicated. I don't think it's a good decision, but that's what the Volkswagen Group do. Look at their ownership structure. It's insane. Nobody fully understands it. There's YouTube videos trying to understand it to people, and they still don't understand it after they've watched the entire video. Volkswagen Group China's sales have declined for 4 consecutive years after hitting a record high of 4.2 million in 2019. The automaker's local deliveries fell by 10% to below 2.9 million last year. So they have capacity for 5 million and they sold 2.9 million last year. Now, of course, those numbers will continue to fall in 2025. They'll be likely to do 2.5 million in 2025, meaning they have massive excess production capacity. General Motors, Volkswagen Group, Honda, and Nissan have all rolled out a new generation of EVs in China to try to revive sales, but it hasn't worked. So it's not going to work this year or any other year. These companies are in terminal decline in China. GM from 2022 to April 2024 launched sales of 4 locally produced Ultium-based electric car models: the Cadillac Lyriq and the Cadillac Optiq, the Buick Electra 5 and the Buick Electra 4. And those cars are actually pretty decent. I mean, I'm not going to slam them because they're actually not bad. But monthly deliveries of each electric crossover have totaled a few thousand vehicles. I mean, in a car market where you're selling 31 million cars a year, these cars have been complete flops. That's a fact. It's just a fact that Chinese buyers don't believe legacy automakers make great EVs, so they don't buy them. The latest models from General Motors and other Western brands have struggled to compete with Chinese rivals whose EV products are more competitively priced, better equipped, have better intelligent features, better batteries, smarter cockpits, and more advanced driver assist systems. And they look better too. Facing long odds for a meaningful rebound in sales, even with new EV models coming online, they'll be left with no choice but to shut down production lines and plants. And eventually, they'll probably follow Jeep and Mitsubishi and leave the country for good. Let me know what you think in the comment section below.